It was 3:14 in the morning when the silence finally took over the room. You know, movies make death look dramatic.
A final speech that resolves every conflict in the plot. But real life is just the hum of a ventilation system and the smell of antiseptic. I was holding her hand. It felt smaller than I remembered. Fragile, like if I held it too tight, I'd break the only connection I had left to the world I understood. We had been married for 41 years. 41 years of shared bank accounts, mortgage payments, parent-teacher conferences, and Sunday dinners. On paper, we were the success story. I was the provider, she was the rock. We did everything right. We saved, we invested, we planned. And in that hospital room, sitting in a plastic chair that was killing my back, I waited for her to say something profound. I wanted her to tell me she loved me. I wanted her to tell me it was going to be okay. She opened her eyes, and they were cloudy, but for a second, she looked right at me. Not through me, but at me. She squeezed my hand with a strength I didn't think she had left, and she whispered 5 words. She said, "You can finally rest now." And then she was gone. You can finally rest now. At first, I thought she was worried about me being tired from the hospital shifts. I thought she was being the caretaker one last time. But the more I sat there, alone in the quiet, the more those words started to tear me apart.
It wasn't permission to sleep. It was an observation. It was a verdict. She saw what I had refused to see for 4 decades. She saw that I had treated my life, our life, like a job to be finished, not a song to be danced to. I wasted 41 years running, and I didn't even know what I was running toward until the finish line disappeared. I need you to listen to me closely, because I don't want you to be sitting in this chair when you are 75. I want you to understand the trap I fell into. It's a trap that looks like success. It smells like security. It feels like responsibility, but it is a thief. I was 24 when I started my real career. I remember the day I got hired. I felt this surge of adrenaline, this promise that if I just worked hard enough, if I just climbed high enough, I would eventually reach a plateau where I could stop. I told my wife, Mary, I'm going to grind now so we can relax later. That was the mantra. That was the deal. I remember our 10th anniversary. We were supposed to go to the coast. I had booked a nice bed and breakfast, ocean view, the works. 2 days before we were set to leave, a crisis happened at the office. Some supply chain issue that, looking back, wouldn't have mattered a week later. But at the time, it felt like the world was ending. I told Mary I couldn't go. I told her, I have to handle this. It's for our future. She went alone. She said she understood. And she did. She was wonderful.
But I missed the sunset she watched that night. I missed the way the salt air curled her hair. I sat under fluorescent lights, eating a cold sandwich, feeling important. I felt noble. Look at me, the martyr for his family. That was the lie. That is the poison. We convince ourselves that our absence is a form of love. We tell ourselves that by sacrificing the now, we are buying a better later. But here is the brutal truth that took me 7 decades to learn. Later is not a promised land. Later is a rumor. For 41 years, I was physically present, but mentally gone. At the dinner table, I was thinking about the quarterly review. At my daughter's soccer games, I was checking emails on my BlackBerry, and later, my iPhone. I was collecting moments like they were baseball cards, storing them in a shoebox to look at someday. When I retire, I'd say. When I retire, we'll take that trip to Italy. When I retire, I'll learn to paint. When I retire, I'll really listen to what she's saying. Well, I retired. I got the gold watch, I got the cake in the break room, and 6 months later, Mary found the lump. The someday we had saved up for, it vanished. The account balance was full, but the time account was overdrawn. We had the money for Italy, but we didn't have the health. We had the time to talk, but we didn't have the energy. When she said, "You can finally rest now," she was releasing me from the prison I built.
She knew I had been holding my breath for 41 years, waiting for a moment of completion that never comes. I treated happiness like a retirement benefit. There is a specific kind of grief that comes with this realization. It's not just mourning the person you lost. It's mourning the person you could have been while they were here. I look around my house now. It's paid off. I look at my car. It's new. I look at my bank statement. It's comfortable. And I would trade every single zero in that account for one more Tuesday evening with Mary where I wasn't thinking about work. Just one ordinary Tuesday where I was actually in the room. You see, the modern world has sold us a bill of goods. It tells us that life is a ladder. You climb, you struggle, you sweat, and eventually you get to the top, where the view is beautiful and the air is clear. But life isn't a ladder. It's a hike. The view is happening right now. The beauty is in the climb, in the stumble, in the water break. If you keep your head down looking at your boots, waiting for the summit, you're going to miss the whole point of the mountain. I remember one evening, about 15 years ago, Mary came into my home office. I was buried in spreadsheets, stressed out of my mind about a merger. She had a cup of tea in her hand. She put it on my desk and asked, "Do you want to come sit on the porch? The fireflies are out." I didn't even look up. I said, "Not now, Mary, I'm slammed. Maybe in an hour." She walked out.
I didn't go out in an hour. I didn't go out until midnight, and by then, she was asleep, and the fireflies were gone. That memory haunts me more than any mistake I ever made at work. I can't remember what was on those spreadsheets. I can't remember the name of the client I was worried about, but I can remember the sound of her footsteps walking away. I wasted 41 years preparing for a life that I was already living, but I was too busy to notice. So what do you do with this? If you are 30 or 40 or 50, and you hear yourself saying, "I'll do it when things calm down," or "I'll enjoy life when I get that promotion," I need you to stop. Freeze. Look around you. Things never calm down. That is the nature of entropy. That is the nature of life. There will always be a crisis. There will always be a reason to delay joy. You have to steal the joy. You have to ruthlessly carve out moments of peace in the middle of the chaos. Don't wait for the perfect time. The perfect time is a myth created by people who are scared to live. The only time you have is this messy, imperfect, stressful right now. If I could go back, I wouldn't quit my job. I wouldn't stop being a provider. I know we have responsibilities. I know we have to eat. But I would have done it differently. I would have left the office at the office. When I walked through the front door, I would have put the phone in a drawer. I would have looked Mary in the eye and asked, "How was your day?" And I would have actually listened to the answer. I would have realized that resting isn't something you earn at the end of your life. It's something you need to do every day to survive the journey. Mary's last words changed everything because they broke the spell. I am 75 years old. I am alone in a big house full of stuff. And for the first time in my life, I am not running. I am sitting on the porch. I am watching the wind move through the trees. I am drinking the coffee and tasting it, really tasting it, for the first time. But it is a bittersweet peace, because the person I wanted to share this peace with is gone. Don't let your last words be, "I wish I had." And don't let your loved one's last words be a release from a burden you placed on yourself. You might think you're building an empire for your family, but an empire without a king and a queen who are actually present is just a ruin waiting to happen. Your kids don't want your money,
as much as they want your eyes. Your spouse doesn't want your success as much as they want your hand to hold when things get scary. I'm learning to forgive myself. Slowly. It's hard work. Harder than any job I ever had. I talk to Mary sometimes. I sit in her chair. I tell her about the birds at the feeder. I tell her I'm finally resting. I hope she can hear me. But you can hear me. You still have the chance that I don't. You can put down the phone. You can close the laptop.
You can walk into the other room and hug the person you love like you haven't seen them in a year. You can do it today. Please, do it today. Because once that door closes, the silence that follows is louder than any shouting match you've ever had. It's a heavy, suffocating silence. I live in that silence now. I walk through this house, this big, impressive house that I told myself I was buying for her comfort, and it feels like a museum. It's a monument to a life we were supposed to live, full of empty rooms that echo with the sounds of memories we never made. I spent the last few weeks cleaning out my home office. That room was my sanctuary, my bunker. It was where I locked myself away to secure our future. And do you know what I found? I found mountains of paper, decades of urgency. I found files marked critical and high priority from 1995, 2003, 2012. I sat there on the floor with a shredder, feeding these papers into the machine. And I laughed. I actually laughed out loud. Because not a single piece of paper in that room mattered. Not one. The life or death deals, the lawsuits, the quarterly projections that kept me up for weeks, they were all just paper. They turned into confetti in seconds. But then, amidst that pile of useless stress, I found something else. Stuck between a tax return and a vendor contract was a small, pale blue envelope. It was sealed. It was from our 25th anniversary. I remembered that day. I had a crisis at the warehouse.
I came home late, ate cold dinner, and passed out. I never opened the card. I must have swept it up with the business papers, intending to get to it later. Later. That dangerous, poisonous word. I opened it, sitting there on the floor of the office that stole my life. Her handwriting was shaky. She was already getting arthritis then, though I barely noticed. It was short. It said, "I know you're tired. I know you're doing this for us, but I miss my husband. Please come back to me before we're too old to remember who we are." I sat there and wept until my chest hurt. She saw it. 15 years ago, she saw exactly where this train was heading. She tried to pull the emergency brake, and I just shoveled more coal into the engine. I thought she didn't understand the pressure I was under. I thought she was being naive about how the world works. But she wasn't naive. She was the only one of us who knew what was actually real. We trick ourselves, don't we? We think that providing things is the same as providing love. We think that safety is a number in a bank account. But safety is a feeling. Safety is knowing that the person you love is mentally in the room with you, not drifting off into a spreadsheet in their head. I gave Mary financial security, but I left her emotionally abandoned. I made her a widow.